The desert highway stretches endlessly under a bruised sky, where the hum of engines becomes prayer and asphalt becomes sanctuary. Claire Reaper Callahan rides alone. Leather worn to memory, silver hair whipping beneath her half-shell helmet, and a promise carved into her soul 37 years deep. She was 19 when Tommy Mitchell saved her life outside a burning trailer in Barstow. He pulled her from the flames, asked nothing, rode away into dawn. She swore on that scorched ground, "If you ever need me, I'll come." Tommy never called, until 2:47 a.m. on a Tuesday in October, when his granddaughter's voice cracked through static. "Grandpa said you're the only one who'll believe me." 16-year-old Emma Mitchell had witnessed something she shouldn't have. 3 men in expensive suits dumping something heavy into the canyon outside Kingman, Arizona. When she reported it, they found her, followed her, threatened her family. The sheriff dismissed her. Social services doubted her, but Tommy remembered Claire, and Claire never breaks a promise. By dawn, 80 riders rolled through Kingman like thunder given form. Veterans, nurses, truckers, teachers, all bearing the same creed stitched across their backs, iron word. They weren't a gang, they were a reckoning. When the thugs cornered Emma outside a gas station, laughing at the old lady on the bike, they didn't know they'd just declared war on something older than fear, something forged in fire, kept in silence, and delivered without mercy when honor demands it. This is the story of how one promise kept became 80 promises delivered, how laughter turned to silence, and how a girl learned that family isn't blood, it's who shows up when the world looks away. If you're watching this, don't skip ahead. Some stories aren't meant to be rushed, they're meant to be felt. The phone rang at 2:47 a.m., cutting through the desert silence like a knife through silk. Claire Callahan didn't move immediately. She sat upright in bed, already awake. Insomnia had been her companion since the war, since the burns, since the life before leather and chrome. Her small house outside Needles, California, held only essentials: a bed, a table, tools scattered across the garage floor, and photographs she never looked at but couldn't throw away. The phone rang again. She reached for it slowly, her scarred right hand hesitating above the screen. Unknown number, Arizona area code. "Yeah," she answered, voice graveled with decades of cigarettes she'd quit and losses she hadn't. Silence. Then breathing. Young, female, terrified. "Is this Claire Callahan?" The voice trembled like wind through broken glass. "Who's asking?" "My grandpa said, he said you're the only one who'll believe me." The girl's voice cracked. "He said you owe him a promise." Claire's chest tightened. The room grew smaller. 37 years collapsed into a single heartbeat. "Tommy," she whispered. "Yes, Tommy Mitchell. I'm Emma, his granddaughter." The words came faster now, desperate. "They're going to kill us. The sheriff won't listen. Nobody believes me. But Grandpa said, 'Where are you?' 'Kingman, Arizona. We're hiding at the—'" "Don't say it out loud." Claire was already moving, pulling jeans over her legs, finding her boots in the dark. "Is your phone secure?" I don't know. Assume it's not. Text me an address to this number in exactly 20 minutes, nothing else. No names, just numbers and a street. You understand?" "Yes." "Emma." Claire stopped, one boot on, one hand against the wall. "I'm coming. And I'm not coming alone." She ended the call. For a long moment she stood in the darkness, feeling the weight of 37 years pressing down like atmosphere before a storm. Tommy Mitchell, the man who'd pulled her from fire when she was 19 and stupid, and running from a father who thought love came with a closed fist. Tommy had asked nothing, said only, "You ever need anything, you ride west and you ask for Reaper. That's me. That's my word." She'd taken the name, kept the word. Now it was time to pay it forward. Claire walked into her garage, past the Harley Softail that had carried her 400,000 miles across every forgotten highway in the American West. She stopped at the wall, where a leather vest hung on a single nail, black, worn soft as prayer, with a patch across the back that read "Iron Word" above a silver compass rose. She hadn't worn it in 5 years. Not since the last ride. Not since they'd scattered Miller's ashes in the Mojave and promised each other they'd only reunite for something that mattered. This mattered. Claire pulled out her phone and opened a group chat that had been silent for 1,147 days. 83 names, all across the Southwest. Veterans, nurses, mechanics, teachers, truckers. People who'd found each other in the spaces between society's rules, who'd formed something that couldn't be named, but could be felt. A family born, not from blood, but from choice. She typed 4 words: Ironword, Kingman, Dawn. Then she added the 5th word that made it binding: promise. She hit send. Within minutes the responses came, 1 word at a time, no questions asked. Riding, coming, on my way, Ironword. Claire pulled on the vest. It settled against her shoulders like memory made tangible. She walked to her bike, threw her leg over the seat, and felt the familiar weight of purpose return to her spine. The engine roared to life, not loud, but deep, resonant, a sound that traveled through bone rather than air. She pulled onto Highway 95, heading east toward Arizona, toward a promise made in fire 37 years ago, toward a girl she'd never met who was about to learn what it meant when someone kept their word. Behind her, across 3 states, 80 engines answered the call. By dawn, Kingman would understand what it meant to laugh at the wrong person. The desert before dawn exists in shades of purple and silver, where the world hasn't yet decided between night and day. Claire rode through it like a shadow given purpose, her headlight cutting a narrow path through darkness that seemed to press close from all sides. Emma's text had come through at 3:07 a.m., 2847, Cascade Ave, Blue House, corner. Nothing else. Good girl. Claire didn't respond. She just rode harder. The highway stretched empty except for the occasional semi-hauling goods to nowhere anyone cared about. Each passing mile brought memories she'd spent decades trying to bury. The trailer fire, her father's screaming, Tommy's scarred hands pulling her through the window, the way he'd wrapped her in his jacket, put her on the back of his bike, and ridden until the smoke was just a smudge on the horizon. He'd taken her to a diner in Barstow, bought her breakfast, said nothing while she cried into eggs she couldn't eat. Finally, he'd leaned back, lit a cigarette, and said, "You got 2 choices, kid. Go back or go forward. But if you go forward, you go with the understanding that promises are the only currency that matters. Money fails, people fail, but a promise kept, that's immortal." She'd looked at him with eyes still stinging from smoke and asked, "What if I can't keep it?" "Then you die trying. That's the only honorable way out." She'd become Reaper that day, not because she took lives, but because she harvested debts, the kind owed in honor, not blood. Her phone buzzed, messages flooding the group chat. Phoenix, ETA, 90 minutes. Priest Flagstaff, riding now, bringing 3. Nomad Vegas, got 6 with me. Knuckles on and on. Names she'd fought beside, laughed with, mourned alongside. People who understood that the word biker didn't mean criminal. It meant free. And freedom came with responsibility. Claire checked her GPS. 40 minutes to Kingman. She thought about Emma, 16 years old, Tommy's granddaughter. What had she seen? Why wouldn't the sheriff believe her? And who were the men in suits? The questions multiplied, but the answer remained singular. It didn't matter. Tommy had called in the promise. That made Emma family, and family didn't face danger alone. The sky began to lighten, not sunrise yet, but the promise of it. Claire passed the sign, Kingman, 15 miles. She slowed, pulled onto the shoulder, and killed the engine. Silence rushed in like water filling a vacuum. She closed her eyes and did what she always did before a ride mattered. She remembered the faces. Miller, who'd taken a bullet meant for a kid in Tucson. Dinah, who donated a kidney to a stranger and died 3 years later from complications she never complained about. Harmon, who'd ridden into a wildfire to pull out a family and never made it back. Ironword wasn't a club. It was a covenant. Claire opened her eyes. The horizon glowed orange now, the sun preparing its entrance. She pulled out her phone and sent one final message to the group. Meet at the corner of Cascade and 9th. Silent arrival. No colors visible until I signal. This is reconnaissance first. Responses came immediately. Everyone understood. They'd done this before in different towns for different reasons, but always with the same code. Assess, understand, then act. Claire started her engine. The rumble felt like a heartbeat returning after cardiac arrest. She rolled toward Kingman as dawn broke fully, painting the desert gold and red, turning the asphalt into a river of light. Somewhere ahead, a girl waited. Somewhere behind, 80 riders closed the distance. And somewhere in between, 3 men in suits were about to learn that some laughter costs more than they could ever pay. We're in Kingman, Arizona. It's 5:43 a.m., and the sun is rising on a reckoning 37 years in the making. The house at 2847 Cascade Avenue looked exactly like its neighbors. Beige stucco, gravel yard, chain-link fence, except for one detail. Every curtain was drawn, and a motorcycle was parked sideways in the driveway, blocking the garage. Claire circled the block twice before parking 3 houses down. She walked the rest of the way, her boots crunching gravel with deliberate rhythm, her leather vest covered by a plain jacket. To anyone watching, she was just another early morning walker. To anyone who knew, she was something else entirely. She knocked 3 times, pause, twice more. The door opened a crack, an eye appeared, young, brown, ringed with exhaustion. "Emma, you're Claire." "I'm Reaper. Claire died a long time ago." The door opened wider. Emma Mitchell was small for 16, wearing an oversized sweatshirt and jeans torn at the knees. Her dark hair was pulled back severely, and her hands trembled despite obvious efforts to control them. Behind her stood Tommy. Claire's breath caught. He'd aged, deeply, completely. The man who'd pulled her from fire at 42 was now 79, his face a roadmap of sun damage and hard years. But his eyes remained the same, clear, direct, uncompromising. "Reaper," he said quietly. "Tommy." They didn't embrace. They didn't need to. "Come in," he said. The house smelled like coffee and fear. Claire followed them into a small living room where papers covered every surface, printouts, photographs, handwritten notes. Emma had built a case file. "Tell me," Claire said, sitting on the edge of the couch. Emma glanced at her grandfather. He nodded. 2 weeks ago," she began, voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. "I was hiking in Hualapai Valley. It's this canyon area east of town where nobody goes because the trail's not maintained. I like it there. It's quiet." Claire waited. "I saw a black SUV, expensive, out of place. 3 men got out. They were wearing suits, not hiking clothes, suits." Emma's words came faster. "They opened the trunk and pulled out something wrapped in canvas, heavy. It took 2 of them to carry it. They walked to the edge and they threw it in." "Did you see what it was?" "No, but I heard it hit. Rocks, breaking, and then—" Emma's voice dropped. "One of them laughed." Claire's jaw tightened. "I took pictures. With my phone. Zoomed in. Got the license plate, got their faces." Emma reached for a folder, pulled out printed photographs. "I took it to Sheriff Dalton the next day." Claire studied the images. 3 men, mid-40s to mid-50s, professionally dressed. The SUV was a black Escalade, Arizona plates. The license number was clearly visible. "What did the sheriff say?" Emma's expression went dark. "He said I was mistaken, that the canyon is on private property and I was trespassing. He kept the photos and told me to forget what I saw." "Did you?" "No. I printed copies first, and I started asking questions." Emma pulled out more papers. "The property belongs to a company called Pinnacle Development Group. They've been buying land all over Mojave County. The sheriff's brother-in-law works for them." "Smart girl." 2 days after I went to the sheriff," Emma continued, "they found me, the 3 men from the SUV. They followed me home from school. parked outside, just watched. When I told Grandpa, he called the sheriff again. Dalton said there was nothing he could do unless they made a threat. They made a threat, Tommy said quietly. Yesterday. Left a note on the windshield. Said Emma needed to learn when to keep her mouth shut. Said accidents happen to curious girls. Claire felt the familiar coldness settle into her chest, the same feeling she'd had in Kandahar when the convoy rolled past civilians with guns hidden under robes. The same feeling that meant someone was about to learn what happened when they mistook mercy for weakness. "Where are your parents?" Claire asked. "Dad's deployed. Marines. Mom died when I was 8. Emma's voice didn't waver. "It's just me and Grandpa." "Not anymore," Claire said. She pulled out her phone and opened the group chat, checked the latest messages. In position. 17 bikes. Priest arrived, 12 bikes, north side. Nomad here. 9 bikes. Staging behind the Safeway. Knuckles, 83 members. So far, 38 had arrived. More were coming. Claire looked at Emma. "I need you to do exactly what I say, no questions. Can you do that?" "Yes." "Good. Tommy, you still ride?" The old man smiled grimly. "Every day." "Then you're riding with us." "Emma stays here with 2 of my people, doors locked, windows covered. Nobody comes in or out except through me." Claire stood. "We're going to have a conversation with these 3 gentlemen. A polite one. And then we're going to visit Sheriff Dalton and help him remember what his badge actually means." Emma's eyes widened. "There's only... How many of you?" Claire pulled off her jacket. The iron word patch gleamed in the dim light. "By the time the sun's fully up?" "Enough." Tommy moved to the window, pulled back the curtain slightly. "They're out there. The Escalade. 2 houses down." Claire looked. Sure enough, the black SUV sat parked across the street, 2 figures visible in the front seats. She smiled slowly. Perfect, they get to watch this happen. The trap was set. The girl was safe. And 80 riders were about to teach Kingman, Arizona, what it meant when Iron Word arrived in town. The gas station on the corner of Cascade and 9th Street had seen better decades. Faded signs advertised cigarettes at prices from 2003, and the single working pump stood like a monument to persistence. But at 6:47 a.m. on that October morning, it became something else, a staging ground. Claire arrived first, parking her Softail parallel to the building. She killed the engine and waited. 30 seconds later, the rumble began. Not loud at first, distant thunder maybe, or the sound of something geological shifting beneath the earth. But it grew, deepened, became impossible to ignore. They came from 3 directions. From the north, Priest led 17 riders in a tight formation, their bikes gleaming in the early sun. From the west, Nomad and 12 others rolled in like a slow-motion avalanche. From the east, Knuckles appeared with 9 more. They didn't roar in with throttles wide open. They didn't wave or shout or make any sound beyond the inevitable music of engines at idle. They simply arrived, parked in perfect rows, and waited. Claire walked among them. Priest was first off his bike, 6'4", bald, with a cross tattooed on his neck and eyes that had seen too many IED explosions in Fallujah. He'd been a chaplain once. Now he was something harder to define. "Boss," he said quietly. "Priest, status. Everyone's briefed. No colors showing. No weapons visible. We're ghosts until you say otherwise." "Good." Nomad approached next. A woman in her 50s, with grey-streaked hair and hands that had delivered 400 babies as a nurse before she retired to the open road. She carried medical supplies in her saddlebags and wisdom in her silence. "Reaper," she said. "What's the play?" "Intimidation first. 3 targets in a black Escalade parked 2 blocks from here. They've been watching Tommy's house, threatening his granddaughter. We're going to have a conversation." "Just a conversation?" Claire's expression didn't change. "That depends entirely on them." Knuckles was last. A former mechanic from Vegas, with knuckles scarred from decades of engines and bar fights he'd walked away from with honor intact. "How dirty is this?" "Sheriff's involved. He's either bought or scared. The girl saw something she shouldn't have. These men want her quiet. They picked the wrong girl to threaten. Yes, Claire said simply. They did. More bikes arrived. The number swelled. 40, 50, 60. Each rider dismounted in silence, received their briefing from the section leaders, and took their position. They formed a loose perimeter around the gas station, faces turned outward, watching the streets. To anyone driving past, it looked like a motorcycle club meeting. To anyone who understood, it looked like what it was, a tactical operation. Claire checked her phone. Messages continued flooding in, approaching from south. 8 bikes. ETA, 10 minutes. Wrench coming in from 40. Got 7, almost there. Dancer delayed. Accident on 93. Still coming. 6 bikes. Grinder. By 7:15 a.m., 73 riders had assembled. Claire called the group leaders together. Priest, Nomad, Knuckles, Wrench, and Dancer. They formed a tight circle near the defunct ice machine. Here's how this goes, Claire said. The Escalade is still parked on Cascade. 3 men inside. We roll up, surround them, and I have a conversation. You stay silent unless I signal otherwise. This is about presence, not violence. We show them they've miscalculated. What if they run? Wrench asked. They won't. We'll block every exit. What if they pull weapons? Dancer's voice was calm, clinical. She'd been a cop once, before the department decided honesty was a fireable offense. Then we respond appropriately. But I don't think they will. Men like this operate through intimidation. When intimidation fails, they fold. Priest nodded slowly. And after the conversation, we visit the sheriff. Same approach. We explain that his oversight has been corrected and that Emma Mitchell is now under protection. Any harm that comes to her or Tommy will be answered by all of us. He'll call for backup, Nomad pointed out. Let him. We're not doing anything illegal. We're exercising our right to peaceful assembly and our obligation to protect our community. Claire's voice hardened, and if he decides to test that, he'll learn very quickly that badges don't mean much when the people lose faith in them. Knuckles smiled grimly. I like this plan. Mount up, Claire said. They returned to their bikes. The engine noise built like a physical force, not deafening but undeniable. 73 Harleys, Indians, Triumphs, and Hondas creating a symphony of displacement and compression. Claire led them out. They rolled down Cascade Avenue in formation. 3 columns, tightly spaced, maintaining exactly 15 miles per hour. Residents came to windows. A jogger stopped to stare. A dog barked frantically from behind a fence. The black Escalade came into view. Claire raised her left hand. The entire convoy slowed. She raised it again. They stopped. The SUV sat alone in the middle of the block, morning sun glinting off its polished hood. Inside, 2 figures jerked upright. Clearly they'd been dozing. Clearly they hadn't expected this. Claire signaled. The convoy split, reformed, and surrounded the vehicle in a perfect circle. Bikes nose to tail, blocking every possible exit. 73 riders, 73 engines idling. 73 faces watching with the patience of stone. Claire dismounted. She walked slowly to the driver's side door. Inside, the man fumbled for his phone. Claire could see panic spreading across his face like ink in water. She knocked on the window. Twice. Politely, the window lowered 3 inches. Good morning, Claire said pleasantly. My name is Reaper. I believe you've been watching my family. The man tried to speak. Nothing came out. Behind Claire, 73 riders waited in perfect silence, and in that silence the message was clear. Laughter was over. If you've made it this far, hit that like button. Because what happens next? That's when these men learn what Ironword really means. The man in the driver's seat was perhaps 45, soft around the middle, with thinning hair gelled into submission and a tie loosened just enough to suggest a long night. His eyes darted from Claire to the wall of motorcycles surrounding him, then back to Claire. We don't. His voice came out strangled. Let me help you, Claire said calmly. You're going to roll down this window completely. You're going to put your hands where I can see them, and you're going to answer my questions. Can you do that?" The man looked at his passenger. Younger, harder, with the build of someone who spent money on a gym membership and used it. The passenger's hand moved toward his waistband. "I wouldn't," Claire said, her voice never rising above conversational, "because if your friend there pulls whatever he's reaching for, 73 people are going to see it as a threat. And while I'm confident you're both very tough, I don't think you're 73 angry riders tough." The passenger's hand stopped. "Smart," Claire said. "Now, window down, hands visible." The window descended fully. The driver placed both hands on the steering wheel, knuckles white. The passenger did the same. "Better. Let's start simple. Names." "I don't have to—" "You're right. You don't." Claire leaned slightly closer. "But here's what's going to happen if you don't. I'm going to step back, and my friends here are going to take pictures of this vehicle, your plates, and your faces. Then we're going to follow you, everywhere, to work, to home, to the grocery store, to your kid's soccer game. We're going to become your shadow, and eventually you're going to wish you'd just answered my questions." The driver swallowed hard. Marcus Webb." Claire looked at the passenger. "Trent," he muttered. "Trent Holloway." "There's a third one," Claire said. "Where is he?" "Office, Pinnacle Development." "Good. Now, Marcus, I want you to explain to me why you've been watching 2847 Cascade Avenue." "I don't know what you're—" Claire held up her phone. Emma's photographs filled the screen. The three men, the canvas-wrapped burden, the canyon edge. Marcus went pale. "Let me rephrase," Claire said. "You were seen disposing of something in Hualapai Valley 2 weeks ago. A 16-year-old girl witnessed it. Instead of cooperating with law enforcement, you decided to intimidate a child. That was mistake number 1. Mistake number 2 was parking outside her house. Mistake number 3? Claire gestured to the motorcycles surrounding them. "You laughed when you saw me ride past yesterday. You called me the lady biker and thought that was funny. Look, we were just supposed to—" "Supposed to what?" Claire's voice went cold. "Scare her, threaten her, make her disappear. No, Jesus, no. We were just told to watch, make sure she didn't talk to anyone else. That's all. We weren't going to hurt anybody." "Who told you?" Marcus hesitated. "Priest gunned his engine once, just enough to make the SUV vibrate." "Ryland," Marcus blurted. "David Ryland. He's our boss. He said the girl was spreading rumors that could damage the company. He wanted us to make sure she understood the consequences of lying." "She wasn't lying. I don't know anything about that. I just do what I'm told." Claire straightened. "Here's what's going to happen, Marcus. You're going to leave Kingman today. You and Trent and your friend at the office. You're going to get in this vehicle, drive straight to Phoenix and never come back. You're not going to contact Emma Mitchell. You're not going to contact Sheriff Dalton. You're not going to breathe in the direction of Tommy Mitchell's house. Are we clear?" "Yes, absolutely. We're gone." "Good. Because if I see this vehicle in Mojave County again, if I hear Emma's name from either of you, if anything happens to that family—" Claire leaned down so her face was level with Marcus's. "Ironword has 83 members across 3 states. We have veterans, nurses, mechanics, teachers, and people who know how to find anyone, anywhere. You'll spend the rest of your life looking over your shoulder, and one day, when you least expect it, you'll hear engines. Understand?" Marcus nodded frantically. "Say it." "I understand. We're gone. We won't come back." Claire stepped back. She raised her hand. The circle of motorcycles parted, just enough to create a narrow exit corridor pointing east, away from Cascade Avenue, toward the highway out of town. "Drive," Claire said. Marcus started the engine with shaking hands. The Escalade lurched forward, squeezed through the gap, and accelerated down the street. It took the corner too fast, tires squealing, and disappeared toward the interstate. Claire watched until it was gone. Then she turned to her crew. 73 faces looked back at her, waiting. "Phase 1 complete," she said. "Now we go see the sheriff." Priest smiled. "This is the part I've been waiting for. Keep waiting, Claire said, because we're doing this by the book, legal, proper. We're citizens exercising our rights, nothing more. And if the sheriff doesn't see it that way, Claire swung onto her bike. Then we help him adjust his perspective. The convoy formed up again. This time, they moved with purpose, rolling through Kingman's early morning streets like a river that had found its course. People stopped to watch. Cars pulled over. A woman on her porch raised her coffee cup in salute. Word was already spreading. Iron Word is in town. The Mojave County Sheriff's Department occupied a squat building on Spring Street, surrounded by a parking lot and a fence that suggested security but delivered only theater. Squad cars sat in neat rows, light bars reflecting the rising sun. Claire led the convoy into the parking lot. They filled every available space, then spilled onto the street, creating a wall of chrome and leather that couldn't be ignored. Claire killed her engine. The silence that followed felt loaded, dangerous. She walked to the front door alone. Inside, a dispatcher looked up from her desk, saw the scene through the glass, and reached for her radio. "Good morning," Claire said pleasantly. "I'd like to speak with Sheriff Dalton. He's not available." "Then I'll wait." Behind her, 73 riders dismounted and stood beside their bikes. The dispatcher's hand trembled on the radio. "Ma'am, you can't. I'm not doing anything illegal. I'm a citizen, requesting a meeting with an elected official, unless that's suddenly against the law." The dispatcher stared. Claire smiled. "I'll wait right here." She walked outside, sat on the steps, and crossed her arms. The waiting game had begun, and Sheriff Dalton was about to learn that Iron Word had all the time in the world. Sheriff Marcus Dalton had been in law enforcement for 23 years, the last 7 as Mojave County's elected sheriff. He'd handled domestic disputes, drug busts, border issues, and every variety of human stupidity that thrived under the desert sun. But he'd never dealt with this. He stood at his office window on the 2nd floor, looking down at 73 motorcycles, and the riders standing beside them in absolute silence. They weren't chanting. They weren't threatening. They were simply there. A presence that had transformed his parking lot into something between a protest and a siege. "Who the hell are they?" he asked his deputy, a young man named Carson, who looked like he wanted to be anywhere else. "Biker club. Call themselves Iron Word. The woman who came to the door asked to speak with you." "What does she want?" "Didn't say, just said she'd wait." Dalton ran a hand through his thinning hair. He'd gotten the call from Marcus Webb 40 minutes ago. Panicked, incoherent, something about being surrounded by bikers and leaving town. Dalton had tried calling David Ryland at Pinnacle Development, but it went to voicemail. He looked down at the woman sitting on his front steps. She was maybe 60, with silver hair pulled back, wearing jeans and a leather vest. She sat with the stillness of someone who'd learned patience the hard way. "Run her plates," Dalton said. Carson pulled out his tablet, typed rapidly. "Claire Callahan, Needles, California. No warrants, no record except a few speeding tickets from the 90s. Registered veteran, Army, served in Iraq, honorable discharge." A veteran. That complicated things. What about the club? Iron Word isn't a registered gang. No criminal affiliations in any database. They're classified as a veteran support organization, actually. They do charity rides, help homeless vets, that kind of thing. Dalton's stomach sank. You couldn't tear gas a charity organization without ending up on the news, and not in a good way. "Get her up here," he said finally. Carson hesitated. "Sir, with all due respect, maybe we should get her up here. Now." 5 minutes later, Claire Callahan sat across from Sheriff Dalton in his office. She hadn't removed her vest. The Iron Word patch was clearly visible. "Ms. Callahan," Dalton began carefully, "you understand that assembling like this could be construed as intimidation of a law enforcement facility." "Could be," Claire agreed, "but it isn't. We're peacefully assembled in a public parking lot. No one's blocking traffic. No one's making threats. We're exercising our First Amendment rights while waiting to speak with you." Dalton leaned back in his chair. "What do you want to speak about?" "Emma Mitchell. His expression didn't change, but Claire saw the micro-tension in his jaw. Emma Mitchell reported a crime 2 weeks ago, Claire continued. She provided photographic evidence of 3 men disposing of something suspicious in Hualapai Valley. You dismissed her report, kept her evidence, and told her to forget what she saw. Why? That's an ongoing investigation. No, it isn't. You filed no report. You opened no case. You did nothing except warn a 16-year-old girl that she was trespassing. Claire's voice remained calm. And then those same 3 men started watching her house. They left a threatening note. She reported that too. You told Tommy Mitchell there was nothing you could do. I can't deploy resources based on... Her grandfather served in Vietnam. Did you know that? Claire interrupted. Bronze Star, Purple Heart. He came home to a country that spit on him, and he still believes in the system. He still trusts that the law means something, and you failed him. Dalton's face flushed. Now wait, I'm not finished. Claire leaned forward slightly. Those 3 men work for Pinnacle Development. Your brother-in-law works for Pinnacle Development. That's either the worst coincidence in Arizona or the most obvious conflict of interest. Either way, it means Emma Mitchell didn't get a fair investigation. It means she went to the law, and the law looked away. Are you accusing me of corruption? I'm observing facts. What you call it is up to you. Dalton stood abruptly. This conversation is over. You and your club need to leave, now, or I'll call the state police. Please do. Claire remained seated. I'd love to explain to them why 73 veterans had to come to Kingman to ensure a 16-year-old girl's safety. I'm sure the media would be very interested. The sheriff's hand froze halfway to his phone. Claire continued, her voice never rising. Here's what's going to happen, Sheriff. You're going to reopen Emma Mitchell's case. You're going to properly investigate what she saw. You're going to do your job. And if anything happens to that girl or her grandfather, if they receive so much as a threatening phone call, Ironword will return, all of us, and we won't be sitting quietly in your parking lot. We'll be holding a press conference on your front lawn explaining exactly how Mojave County's sheriff failed to protect a child. You can't threaten me. I'm not threatening you. I'm making a promise. We protect our own. And as of this morning, Emma Mitchell is family. Dalton stared at her. The office felt small, airless. The men in the Escalade are gone, Claire said. They left town this morning. They won't be back. But whoever told them to watch Emma, whoever ordered them to intimidate a child, that person is still here, and you know who they are. I don't. Yes, you do. And now you have a choice. You can do the right thing, or you can wait for us to do it for you. I'd suggest the former. It'll be easier for everyone. Claire stood. She walked to the door, paused, and looked back. We'll be watching, Sheriff. Not today. Not obviously. But we're always watching. That's what family does. She left the office, walked down the stairs, and emerged into the morning sun. 73 riders looked at her expectantly. Claire raised one hand. Thumb up. The response was immediate but controlled. Engines started in sequence, creating a rolling wave of sound. The riders mounted up, formed into columns and prepared to roll out. Priest pulled alongside Claire. How'd it go? He'll do the right thing, eventually. Fear is a powerful motivator. And if he doesn't, Claire smiled slightly, then we come back with more people and better cameras. They rolled out of the parking lot slowly, deliberately, making sure every squad car and every deputy saw them leave. The message was clear. We were here. We can come back. Remember that. By 9:30 a.m., the convoy had dispersed, riders heading home to Phoenix, Flagstaff, Vegas, Needles. Promises made, promises kept. Claire was the last to leave. She stopped at Tommy's house one final time. Emma opened the door, eyes wide. Is it over? For now, Claire said, but if anything happens, I call you. You call me. Tommy appeared behind his granddaughter. He and Claire looked at each other for a long moment. 37 years, Tommy said quietly. I never thought you'd actually... I gave my word, Claire said simply. That's all that matters. She turned to go, then stopped. Tommy, we're even now, but if you ever need anything again, you don't wait 37 years. Understood? The old man smiled. Understood. Claire rode west, back toward California, back toward the life she'd built on the foundation of promises kept. Behind her, Kingman returned to normal, or as normal as a town could be after Ironwood had rolled through. But in Sheriff Dalton's office, a file was reopened. In a corporate office, David Ryland found himself under sudden and uncomfortable scrutiny. And in a small house on Cascade Avenue, a girl learned that family wasn't defined by blood. It was defined by who showed up when nobody else would. If this story resonated with you, hit that like button, because there's more to Ironwood than meets the eye, and some promises echo far longer than a single ride. 3 days after the convoy rolled out of Kingman, Claire Callahan was 400 miles away, working on a transmission in her garage, when her phone buzzed. Unknown number, Arizona area code. She wiped her hands on a rag and answered. Yeah. Ms. Callahan, this is Deputy Carson from Mojave County Sheriff's Department. Claire's hand tightened on the phone. Is Emma okay? She's fine. I'm calling because I thought you should know. Sheriff Dalton reopened the Mitchell case this morning. We sent a team to Hualapai Valley, found human remains wrapped in canvas exactly where Emma said. Been there about 3 weeks, based on decomposition. Medical examiner thinks it's a male, mid-30s, still identifying. Claire closed her eyes. A body. Emma had witnessed a murder. There's more, Carson continued. We executed a search warrant on Pinnacle Development's offices, found evidence of fraud, bribery, illegal land acquisitions. David Ryland's been arrested. 2 other executives with him. The FBI's taking over the case. And the sheriff? Silence. Deputy? He's cooperating. There's an internal investigation into his handling of Emma's initial report. His brother-in-law's been subpoenaed. Carson's voice dropped. Between you and me, I think Dalton knew something was wrong but didn't want to look too close. Your visit forced his hand. Good. Ms. Callahan, to what you did here, the way you showed up for that girl. A lot of us saw it. A lot of us wished we'd done more sooner. You're doing more now. That's what matters. After hanging up, Claire sat in silence for a long time. Then she opened the group chat and typed a brief message. Kingman case resolved. Human remains found. Arrests made. Emma safe. Mission accomplished. The responses came quickly. Proud to ride with you. Priest justice served. Nomad, this is why we do it. Knuckles on and on. 83 voices affirming the same truth. Promises kept, honor defended, family protected. Claire returned to her transmission work, hands steady, mind quiet. This was the life she'd built. One promise at a time, one ride at a time, one person who needed help at a time. The world was full of Marcus Webbs and David Rylands, men who mistook money for power and silence for weakness. But it was also full of Emmas and Tommies, people who believed that courage mattered, that truth mattered, that standing up when everyone else looked away was the only honorable choice. Ironwood existed for them, not as vigilantes or outlaws, but as something older and simpler, people who kept their word. 2 weeks later, a package arrived at Claire's house. Inside was a handwritten letter on lined paper. Dear Reaper, Grandpa says I should call you Claire, but you'll always be Reaper to me. That's the name of someone who keeps promises. The sheriff found him, the man in the canyon. His name was Daniel Torres. He was a construction worker who'd found evidence of safety violations at one of Pinnacle's projects. When he threatened to report it, they killed him. Because of what I saw, because of what you did, his family gets answers. His little girl knows what happened to her dad. I'm not supposed to be glad about any of this, but I'm glad I didn't stay quiet. I'm glad Grandpa knew you. I'm glad you came. They're charging Mr. Ryland with murder. The FBI says my testimony is critical. I'm scared, but Grandpa says courage isn't about not being scared. It's about doing what's right even when you are. I think he learned that from you. Thank you for showing me what family really means. Love. Emma Claire read the letter 3 times. Then she folded it carefully and placed it in a drawer with other letters, other stories, other promises kept. Her phone buzzed. New message in the group chat. Anyone free next month? Got a situation in Albuquerque. Single mom being harassed by ex's biker gang. She's asking for help. Wrench Claire typed her response, "I'm in." Within minutes, 30 others had replied the same, because that's what Iron Word did. That's what they'd always done. Across state lines, across years, across every barrier that separated people who needed help from people who could give it, they rode, not for glory, not for recognition, just for the simple ancient promise, if you call, we come. Claire finished her work on the transmission, cleaned her tools, and walked to her bike. The sun was setting, painting the desert in shades of orange and purple. Somewhere in Kingman, a girl was safe. Somewhere in Arizona, a family had answers. Somewhere across 3 states, 83 people went about their normal lives. Teachers and nurses and mechanics and veterans, knowing that when the call came, they'd ride again. That was enough. That was everything. Claire started her engine. The familiar rumble filled the garage, then spilled out into the cooling evening air. She pulled onto the highway and rode west toward the setting sun, toward tomorrow, toward the next promise that would need keeping. Behind her, the road stretched empty and infinite. Ahead, it did the same. And in between, in the space where asphalt met sky and engines met silence, that's where Iron Word lived. That's where honor survived. That's where promises became immortal. Albuquerque in November carried a different kind of cold than the desert heat Claire was used to. The air bit with altitude, and the mountains surrounding the city looked like ancient sentinels wrapped in early snow. She met Wrench at a diner off I-40, neutral ground, public, safe. The single mother's name was Sophia Mendoza, and she sat across from them with the kind of exhaustion that came from months of sleepless nights and constant fear. "His name is Travis Keller," Sophia explained, hands wrapped around a coffee cup she hadn't touched. "We were together 3 years. When I left him, he said I'd regret it. Then his club started showing up everywhere. My work, my daughter's school, the grocery store, just watching." Claire listened without interrupting. Wrench took notes on his phone. "I've gone to the police 4 times. They say until he makes a direct threat, there's nothing they can do. But what they're doing is a threat. My daughter's 8 years old. She's afraid to go outside." "His club have a name?" Claire asked. "Desert Devils, about 30 members. They operate out of a garage on Coors Boulevard." Claire exchanged a look with Wrench. 30. That was manageable. "What do you want from us?" Claire asked directly. Sophia looked up, eyes red-rimmed but clear. "I want them to leave us alone. I want my daughter to feel safe. I want to stop sleeping with a baseball bat next to my bed. We can do that." "How?" Claire leaned back. "The same way we always do. We show them they've miscalculated, that the woman they're intimidating isn't alone, that continuing this behavior will cost more than it's worth. I don't want anyone hurt. Neither do we. This isn't about violence. It's about presence, about making it clear that Sophia Mendoza is protected, that Iron Word stands with her. Most bullies fold when they realize their target has backup." Sophia's hands trembled slightly. "And if they don't fold, then we escalate, legally. We document everything, we contact media. We make their harassment so public and so visible that law enforcement has no choice but to act." Wrench added quietly, "We've done this before, multiple times. It works." Sophia looked between them. "Why? You don't know me. Why would you help?" Claire's expression softened slightly. "Because 37 years ago, someone helped me when nobody else would. And I made a promise that when I could, I'd do the same for others. That promise built Iron Word. It's not about knowing you, it's about knowing that everyone deserves to be safe, especially children." Tears tracked down Sophia's face. "When can you help?" "We're already helping. Wrench, send the call." 2 weeks later, on a cold Saturday morning, 42 motorcycles rolled into Albuquerque. They parked outside Sophia's apartment building and waited. The Desert Devils showed up within an hour, a ragged group on bikes that looked more style than substance. Leather vests adorned with patches meant to intimidate. Travis Keller led them, a man in his 30s with the kind of muscles that came from steroids and a gym, not work. He pulled up across the street and stared. 42 riders stared back. Claire walked into the middle of the street, alone. Travis killed his engine and swung off his bike. He was trying for swagger, but Claire saw the uncertainty in his walk. "Who the hell are you?" he demanded. "Someone who believes your ex-girlfriend has suffered enough harassment. This is none of your business. I'm making it my business. You're going to leave Sofia Mendoza and her daughter alone, permanently. No more drive-bys, no more showing up at her work, no more intimidation. You're done." Travis laughed, but it sounded forced. "Or what, you and your geriatric biker friends gonna teach me a lesson?" Claire didn't smile. "No, we're going to make you famous. See those people in the windows?" She gestured to the apartment buildings surrounding them. "They're filming this, every word, every action. If you continue harassing Sofia, we'll release that footage to every local news station in New Mexico. We'll explain how the Desert Devils target single mothers and their children, how you've been stalking your ex despite multiple police reports, how a motorcycle club had to intervene because law enforcement wouldn't." Travis's face flushed. "You can't." "We absolutely can, and we will. Additionally, we've documented every instance of harassment over the past 6 months. Times, dates, locations, witnesses. We've compiled it into a formal complaint that will be filed with the state police if you make one more threatening move. Do you understand what happens to small-time clubs when they get that kind of attention? The real gangs don't like the spotlight. They tend to remove problems that draw too much focus." The color drained from Travis's face. "You have a choice," Claire continued. "Walk away, find someone else to blame for your failed relationship, or keep pushing and watch everything you've built collapse. What's it going to be?" Travis looked at his club members. They looked uncertain now. This wasn't the easy intimidation they'd signed up for. "This is bullshit," Travis muttered. "That's not an answer." "Fine, whatever. We're gone. Say it clearly. We'll leave her alone. Happy?" "Very." Claire stepped aside. "You can go now." The Desert Devils departed without ceremony, engines revving to save face, but moving away nonetheless. Sofia emerged from her apartment building, her daughter holding her hand. "Is it really over?" she asked. "It is," Claire said. "But if it's not, if they come back, if you see them anywhere near you or your daughter, you call me immediately. We'll be back within hours." Sofia nodded, tears streaming freely now. "Thank you. I don't know how to—" "You don't have to thank us. Just live your life, be safe, be happy. That's all the payment we need." Claire returned to her bike. The convoy rolled out, leaving Sofia standing with her daughter in the cold morning sun, finally, blessedly alone. As they headed back toward the interstate, Wrench pulled alongside Claire at a red light. "Another one for the books," he said through his helmet comm. "Another promise kept. You ever wonder what we'd do if we ran out of people to help?" Claire smiled beneath her visor. "We won't. There's always someone who needs help, always someone the system failed. That's why Ironword exists." The light turned green. They accelerated together, merging onto I-40, heading home. But home was a relative concept for Ironword. Home wasn't a place. It was a code, a set of principles that governed every action, every decision, every ride. The code was simple. Keep your word, no matter the cost. Protect those who cannot protect themselves. Stand together, ride together, never abandon your own. Answer when called, no questions asked. Violence is the last resort, but never hesitate when it's necessary. Leave every place better than you found it. That code had been written 37 years ago when Tommy Mitchell pulled a terrified girl from a burning trailer and asked nothing in return. It had been refined through decades of rides, through mistakes and victories, through members lost and promises kept. It wasn't perfect, but it was theirs. Claire thought about Emma Mitchell, safe in Kingman. About Sofia Mendoza, no longer looking over her shoulder. About Daniel Torres's daughter, who finally had answers. About all the people Ironword had helped over the years. Veterans struggling with PTSD, families facing foreclosure, victims of domestic violence, whistleblowers threatened into silence. Each one was a thread in a tapestry that stretched across the Southwest, invisible to most but felt by everyone who'd ever needed help, and found it in the rumble of approaching engines. 2 days after Albuquerque, Claire was back in her garage when Priest called. "Got something you need to hear," he said without preamble. "I'm listening." "Sheriff Dalton in Kingman. He resigned yesterday. Internal investigation found he'd been taking consulting fees from Pinnacle Development for 3 years. He's facing charges." Claire set down her wrench. "And the replacement. Deputy Carson. He's young, but he's clean. First thing he did was create a direct hotline for reporting corporate misconduct. Second thing, he called Emma Mitchell personally to apologize for how her case was handled. Good. There's more. David Ryland cut a deal. He's testifying against 12 other developers involved in the same scheme across Arizona, New Mexico, and Nevada. The FBI says it could bring down a massive land fraud operation." Claire closed her eyes. One girl's courage, one photograph, one promise kept, and now dozens of corrupt officials facing justice. "Reaper, I'm here. You did good. We all did. We did what needed doing, nothing more." After the call ended, Claire walked outside into the desert afternoon. The sky stretched infinite and blue, unmarred by clouds. Somewhere out there, 83 people were living their lives, teaching classes, fixing engines, delivering babies, building homes, ordinary people doing ordinary things, until the call came. Then they became something else, something the world needed, but rarely acknowledged, people who kept their promises. Claire's phone buzzed. Group chat notification, new situation, Phoenix, elderly vet being evicted by landlord despite rent being paid. Possible elder abuse. Anyone available? Nomad Claire typed, "I'm in." Within 30 minutes, 20 others had responded. The work never ended. The promises never stopped. And Ironword never quit. Because in a world that increasingly valued convenience over commitment, profit over people, and expedience over honor, someone had to stand for something different. Someone had to show up. Someone had to keep their word. Claire returned to her garage, finished her work on the transmission, and began packing for Phoenix. Another ride, another promise, another chance to prove that honor wasn't dead. It was just waiting for the right people to defend it. The sun set over the desert, painting the horizon in fire and gold. In the distance, a coyote called. The wind carried the scent of sage and dust. And in that vast, empty landscape, a code survived. A promise endured. A family rode on. Phoenix in December felt like a contradiction. Cold mornings giving way to warm afternoons, the city caught between seasons. Claire arrived at the address Nomad had provided, a modest apartment complex in a neighborhood that had seen better decades. The elderly veteran's name was Henry Corso, 81 years old, Korean War survivor, living on Social Security and a pension that barely covered rent. His landlord had served him eviction papers despite documented proof that rent had been paid every month for 7 years. Claire knocked on his door at 9 a.m. Henry answered slowly, using a walker. He was small, thin, with eyes that had seen too much but still held clarity. "Mr. Corso, my name is Claire Callahan. I'm with Ironword." Henry studied her, then smiled slightly. "The bikers. My neighbor said you were coming." Thought she was confused. She wasn't. "May I come in?" The apartment was immaculate despite its age. Military precision in every corner, photographs from Korea on the walls, medals in a shadow box. Henry moved carefully to his chair. "Tell me what happened," Claire said. Henry explained methodically. His landlord, a property management company called Apex Holdings, had been bought out 6 months ago. The new owners immediately began raising rents and serving eviction notices to long-term tenants. especially elderly ones on fixed incomes who couldn't afford lawyers. "They want us out so they can renovate and charge triple," Henry said. "I showed them my cancelled checks, my bank statements, everything. They said the previous owner's records were incomplete, and I couldn't prove I'd been paying. Said I owe back rent or I'm out by January 1st. Claire's jaw tightened. "Do you have copies of everything? Copies, originals, and bank letters confirming every payment? Good, we're going to fix this." Over the next week, Ironword mobilized differently. This wasn't a confrontation requiring presence. It was a battle requiring precision. Priest, who'd studied law before becoming a chaplain, reviewed Henry's documents and found multiple violations of tenant protection laws. Nomad contacted a legal aid organization she'd worked with before. Wrench discovered that Apex Holdings had pending violations with the city for unsafe building practices. They built a case. On December 15th, Claire walked into Apex Holdings' corporate office with 20 riders. They didn't threaten. They didn't intimidate. They simply delivered a legal brief, compiled evidence, and a letter signed by 83 witnesses willing to testify about Apex's predatory practices. They also brought media. Local news cameras captured everything: elderly tenants holding documentation, veterans standing in solidarity, and a property management company suddenly very interested in resolving the matter quietly. Henry Corso's eviction was rescinded within 48 hours. Apex Holdings agreed to honor all existing leases at current rates. The city launched an investigation into their business practices. 3 weeks later, Claire sat in Henry's apartment drinking coffee. "You saved my home," Henry said quietly. "You served your country. Your country should serve you back." "That's not how it usually works." "No," Claire agreed. "It's not. But that's why we do this." Henry looked at the iron word patch on her vest. "What does it mean?" "Iron word. It means your word is iron, unbreakable. Once given, it cannot be taken back. When we make a promise, we keep it, no matter what." "Where did you learn that?" Claire told him about Tommy Mitchell, about the fire, about 37 years of carrying a promise until the day it was called in, about Emma Mitchell and Sofia Mendoza and Daniel Torres and every person who'd needed help when the world looked away. "I was lost once," Claire said. "Someone found me, made me understand that honor isn't old-fashioned or outdated. It's the only thing that survives when everything else fails. So I built something. We all did. A family that isn't bound by blood but by code." Henry nodded slowly. "I understand that. In Korea, we had a saying, 'A man's word is his armor. Break your word and you're defenseless.'" Exactly. They sat in comfortable silence, two veterans from different wars, but the same understanding. Finally, Henry asked, "What happens now? You all just leave?" "We go home, back to our lives, until the next call. And there will be a next call. There always is." Henry smiled. "Good. The world needs more people like you. The world needs more people like you, Mr. Corso. People who keep fighting even when it seems hopeless. You didn't give up. You reached out. That took courage. I reached out because I had nowhere else to turn. And we were there. That's the promise. When you have nowhere else to turn, Ironword is there." Claire finished her coffee and stood. "If you ever need anything again, I call you. You call me." They shook hands, his grip surprisingly strong despite his age. Claire walked outside where Priest and Nomad waited by their bikes. "Ready?" Priest asked. "Almost." Claire pulled out her phone and opened the group chat. She typed, "Phoenix resolved. Henry Corso keeping his home. Apex Holdings under investigation. Another promise kept. Thank you all." The responses flooded in immediately. Congratulations, affirmations, and the simple acknowledgement that meant everything. Iron word. Claire mounted her soft ale. The engine rumbled to life, familiar as breathing. They rode out of Phoenix together, 3 bikes in formation, heading toward 3 different destinations, but bound by the same code. As they reached the highway split where they'd separate, Priest pulled alongside Claire one last time. You ever think about what happens when we're too old to ride? He asked. Claire smiled beneath her helmet. Then we teach others. Pass it on. Make sure Iron Word survives us. Think anyone will remember? The people we help will remember. Their children will hear the stories, and maybe some of them will pick up the code, keep the promise, ride when called. Iron Word forever. Iron Word forever. They separated then, Priest north toward Flagstaff, Nomad west toward California, Claire east toward Needles. The desert highway stretched before her, empty and infinite. The sun was setting again, painting the world in shades of amber and crimson. Her bike hummed beneath her, steady and reliable, carrying her home. But home had become something different over the years. Home wasn't a house or a town or a state. Home was the knowledge that somewhere out there, 83 people shared the same code. That when someone needed help, engines would start. That promises weren't just words, they were sacred obligations. Claire rode into the sunset, toward tomorrow, toward the next call, toward whatever came next. Behind her, the road disappeared into darkness. Ahead, it glowed with possibility. And in between, in that narrow space where honor survived and promises became real, that's where Iron Word lived. That's where family meant something deeper than blood. That's where Claire Reaper Callahan had found her purpose 37 years ago and would carry it until her last breath. The highway stretched on forever, and so did the promise. Thank you for riding with Iron Word through this journey. If this story moved you, please subscribe to hear more stories about honor, courage, and the people who keep their promises when the world looks away. Until the next call, ride safe, ride true, and remember, your word is iron. Keep it that way. Iron Word, Iron Promise, forever.